Hey guys, today we're going to do a predicted paper that I've made for IGCSE Edexcel Maths, paper code 4MA11H. In this video, I've compiled all of the topics that I think will be appearing in your paper 1. Looking at the trend start from 2018 till 2025, I believe these topics have a higher chance of appearing. As you know, some topics always appear, which is the algebra questions and some statistic questions, whereas some sometimes come, sometimes don't. But based on the trend, I've included as many questions I think have a very high chance of appearing in your exam. I'll be making a separate video for 1HR, so stay tuned for that. So let's start with this one, see what type of questions you can get in your higher Edexcel Maths paper 1. So this question has a very high chance of coming. It sometimes skips a year, so I think it skipped last year, so I feel like it's going to come this year in paper 1. So they'll give you a table with intervals and frequency for each interval. You have to identify the model class. Model class is basically the class interval which has the highest frequency. Highest frequency over here is 19, which means your model class is this one, which is P is less than equal to 1, but greater than 0. Then work out an estimate for the mean height of the parcels. So very easy. Always remember, make a separate column over here where you will find the midpoint of the class intervals. That will be your x value. So midpoint of 0 to 1 is 0.5. Midpoint of 1 to 2 is 1.5. Midpoint of 2 to 3 is 2.5. 3 to 4 is 3.5. And 4 to 5 is 4.5. The reason why it's called estimate mean is because we don't have exact values for the given intervals. We have intervals of weight. So your weight can be anything as long as it is in that interval. So that's why it's an estimate. So if you pick the midpoint value, you're further just, estimating that, the weight is going to be this in this interval, in this, and then this in this interval, and so on. So you can just automatically connect it through that in case you forget that you have to find the midpoint, that it's an estimate. So since it's an estimate, we don't have an exact value. So what we do is we find the midpoint of the intervals and then use that to find the estimate mean. So in the next column, what you do is you multiply your frequency and your x value. So f times x over here. So we do 19 times 0.5, which is going to be 9.5. Then we do 12 times 1.5, which is 18. Then 5 times 2.5, that's 12.5. 2 times 3.5, that's 7. And then 2 times 4.5, that's 9. So now the mean formula is sum of f times x. So sum of all of these values divided by sum of f. F is your frequency. So 9.5 plus 18 plus 12.5 plus 7 plus 9 divided by sum of all of these. In the question, they've already told us that there are 40 parcels. So you don't need to add the frequencies and waste time on that. You can just directly take the total frequency from over here. Try to save as much time as possible so that you have time left at the end to check your answers and go through the questions that you're struggling with. So now we'll just plug this in the calculator. That's 1.4. So 1.4 kgs is your estimate for the mean weight of the parcels. Easy 5 marks, which you can easily score. Nothing complicated in this. Then ratios is a very popular topic that always tends to come. You will always get a word problem for ratios. It's Andreas, Isla, and Paolo share some money in the ratio 3:2:5. The total amount of money that Isla and Paolo receive is 76 pounds more than the amount of money that Andreas receives. Andreas buys a video game for 48.50 pounds with some of his share of the money. Work out how much Andreas has left from his share of the money when he has bought the video game. So this is your ratio. Let's highlight that. This ratio is for Andreas, Isla, and Paolo. The total amount of money that Isla and Paolo receive is 76 pounds more than the amount of money Andreas receives. So if Andreas is X, Paolo plus Isla is going to be 76 plus X. We're just translating the statement into an equation. Total amount of money Isla and Paolo receive is 76 pounds more than the amount of money Andreas receives. So if Andreas receives X amount of money, Paolo and Isla receive 76 plus X. Now, Andreas buys a video game for 48.50 with some of his share of the money. So current Andrew's share is going to be x minus 48.50. Work out how much money he has left from his share of the money when he has bought the video game. So we have translated the last three statements into equations. Now we're going to use the ratio to create further more equations. So Andreas is 3 out of 10 of total money. You always use your ratio to create a fraction. Andreas is 3 over here. So numerator is going to be 3. Denominator is going to be sum of all of the values in the ratio. 3 plus 2 plus 5 is 10. So that's why we have 10 in the denominator. Similarly, Ayla is going to be 2/10 of total money. And Paolo is going to be 5/10 of the total money. Going back to our initial equations, we said that Andreas receives x and Paolo plus Ayla is 76 plus x. So if you think about that, total money would be x plus 76 plus x, because the total money is shared among these three people. So when we add their shares, that would give us the total money, which is 2x plus 76. Now to figure out how much he has left, what we can do is, we can use Andreas' initial share, which is x, use his equation, which is this one, this, and this. We use all these three things to figure out the value of x. And once we have that, we can subtract 48.50 from that to get how much money he has left. So x, which is his share, equals to 3 over 10 times the total money, which is 2x plus 76. Cross multiply to get rid of the fraction. So that's going to be 10x equals to 3 bracket 2x plus 76. Expand the bracket. 6x plus 228. Collect the like terms on each side. Divide 228 by 4, which is 57 pounds. Now, Andreas' current share is going to be 57 minus 48.5. That gives us 8.5 pounds. That is the answer. So very simple. Just remember, use the ratio to create your fractions, then create your equations and solve it step by step. And remember, in word problems, every statement is giving you a step. So if you just translate your statement into an equation, your question will be very easy. Then estimation, calculate 20.24 minus cube root of 30 over 6.5, giving your answer correct to one decimal place. Easy question. You just plug this in the calculator, and then whatever answer you get, you just round it to one decimal place. So 20.24 minus cube root of 30 divided by 6.5. That's 2.6358103837. Our focus is first decimal place. So first decimal place will be rounded based on the number in the second decimal place, which is 3. 3 is below 5. So that means 2.6 remains as it is. We don't round it up. If it was 5 and above, then the number rounds up. Then it will be 2.7. So for this question, you need to know how to round decimal places. And that is very essential because in your questions, they will always ask you to round the answer to 2 decimal places or 1 decimal place or 3 significant figures. So you need to know that distinction. Then upper bound and lower bound. That is a very popular question that always comes. I have taken a question that will focus on all of the concepts of upper bound that are the most confusing, which is finding the difference and division. So over here, we have an equation, P equals to 2a minus c over d, where a is 58.4 correct to 3 significant figures, c is 20 correct to 2 significant figures, d is 3.6 correct to 2 significant figures. We have to work out the upper bound for the value of p, show your working clearly, and give your answer correct to 2 decimal places. So first, you need to figure out what will we use for a, c, and d. Do we use the upper bounds or lower bounds? In our question, they have told us that we need to find the upper bound of p. So when there's division and we're trying to find the upper bound of the subject, that means the numerator is going to be upper bound and denominator is going to be lower bound. If it was lower bound of p, you would be dividing the lower bound of the numerator by the upper bound of the denominator. If you're someone who struggles with understanding this distinction, I'm attaching a link above for the upper bound and lower bound topical video that I've already created using past paper questions. Do check that out and clear all your confusions about the topic if there are any. So coming back over here, in the numerator, we are subtracting. So when it's subtraction and you're trying to find the upper bound, what you do is you subtract the lower bound from the upper bound because we want the biggest possible value. If we were doing upper bound minus upper bound, we wouldn't get the biggest possible value. To find the biggest possible value, you have to subtract the lowest value from the biggest value. That's why it's upper bound minus lower bound in difference when you're trying to find the upper bound. So now that we've decided what we need for each A, C, and D, next step is to find the upper bound and lower bound for them. So for A, it's 58.4 correct to 3 significant figures. Whenever something is given correct to significant figures in bounds, what you do is first you figure out what is the third significant figure in the given value. So for 58.4, our third significant figure is 4. 5 is the first significant figure, 8 is the second significant figure, 4 is the third significant figure. You always start counting your significant figures from left to right, not right to left. It's always going to be in this direction. So 4 is our third significant figure. Now you have to identify the place value of the significant figure. Place value 4 is 0.1 because it's in the 10th place. So whatever is the place value, what we do is we divide that by 2, always. Once you've identified this significant figure and then its place value, you will divide the place value always by 2. So 0.1 divided by 2, that's 0.05. So for the upper bound of A, we add 0.05 to 58.4. If you were trying to find the lower bound of A, you would subtract 0.05 from the original value. So that's going to be 58.45. Now moving on to C. For C, we need the lower bound. So in C, the value is 20 and it's correct to 2 significant figures. What is the second significant figure? Second significant figure is going to be 0. What is the place value of 0? 1s. So we divide 1 by 2. That gives us 0.5. And the lower bound is going to be 20 minus 0.5, which gives us 19.5. Now for D, it's correct to 2 significant figures. Second significant figure is 6. Place value of 6 is also 0.1. So we do 0.1 divided by 2, which is 0.05. And your lower bound is going to be 3.6 minus 0.05. That is going to give us 3.55. So now we plug these values in the equation given in the question. P is going to be 2 times 58.45 minus 19.5 divided by 3.55. That gives us, correct to 2 decimal places, that's going to be 27.44. That is the upper bound for the value of P. That's your answer. Then indices, these will always come in your paper 1. You need to know your basic rules of indices. You can't mess this up. These are easy 6 marks, like easiest. Whenever you have similar bases being multiplied, what we do is we add the powers. So it's going to be g to the power of 6 plus 4, which is g to the power of 10. Then whenever you have similar bases being divided, G and K are your bases, and the numbers at the top are your powers. So when they're being divided, we subtract the powers. So K to the power of 10 minus 3, which is 7. The bases are going to stay the same. What is changing is the power. Then when there's a power inside the bracket, outside the bracket, we multiply the powers. And the powers get distributed on the coefficient as well, which is the number 3. They will not just get distributed on the variable, the number as well, which means 3 will have a power of 2 now. When there's no power written, the power is 1. So 1 times 2 is 2. Then C to the power of, again, 1 times 2 over here, because no power written for C, that means it has a power of 1. And D has a power of 4, so 4 times 2. So that's going to be 9 C square D to the power of 8. That is your simplified answer. Always remember the power goes on the number as well, not just the variables. And make sure that you're multiplying the powers when there's a power inside the bracket and outside the bracket. We're not adding them. And don't make the mistake of doing 3 times 2. It's not 3 times 2. It's 3 square. Please make sure that you don't mess this up. Then you can get solving an inequality. So if you have a linear inequality, which is 4x plus 7 greater than 2, you have to find the value of x. So solving a linear inequality is pretty much the same as solving a linear equation. The only difference is the way you're writing the answer. Now you don't have an exact value of x, you have a range of values of x. So first we move the 7 to the other side, which is the basic step. And when we do that, that gives us 4x is greater than 2 minus 7. Whenever you move a term from one side to the other side, it does the opposite. Over here, it's plus 7. So on the right-hand side, it's going to be minus 7. So that's negative 5. Next, we're going to divide both sides by 4 because you want to find the value of x, not 4x. So x is greater than negative 504. That's your answer. If you want to convert this into a decimal, that's also fine. If you want to convert it into a mixed number, that is also fine. If you want to leave it as it is, that also works. So these are, again, easy 6 marks that you can easily score. Then factorizing a quadratic equation. This is bound to come in your paper 1 because if you look at the trend of the questions, if you have solved enough papers, you will see that solving and factorizing a quadratic equation always comes in paper 1. So first you factorize this. For factorization, if you want to use the quadratic formula, that's fine. If you want to use the middle term breakage, that's also fine. So what you do is, quotient of x squared is 1 over here. When nothing is written, it's 1. You multiply the quotient of x squared with 24, which gives us 24. Now you find other factors of 24, and from those we will pick a pair which we can use to replace the middle term, which is 2. So apart from 1 and 24, we have 12 times 2, 8 times 3, and 6 times 4. These are all of your factors of 24. So you can clearly see that 6 times 4 can be used to replace 2 because 6 minus 4 is 2. So we'll write x squared plus 6x minus 4x minus 24. The 2x is just getting replaced by 6x minus 4x. Because if we combine it, it's going to go back to 2x. So we're just rewriting it so we're able to factorize this quadratic equation. Once we've done that, now next step is to factor by grouping. You will split the equation into 2 groups. First 2 terms make one group, last 2 terms make another group. So now in the first group, we can see that we have x common. So then x plus 6, which are the remaining terms that come in the bracket. In the second group, we have negative 4 common. So again, x plus 6 come in the bracket. Now between x and negative 4, we have x plus 6 common. So when you take x plus 6 common, that leaves us with x minus 4 in the bracket. That is your factorized answer. When it says factorize, you give your answer in the form of brackets. You don't give values of x. For solving, that's when you put it equal to x. So now they're saying that the quadratic equation is equal to 0, which means x plus 6 times x minus 4 is also equal to 0. Because basically these brackets are the quadratic equation written in different format. That's it. If you expand the brackets, it will go back to this quadratic equation. So if the quadratic equation is equal to 0, the brackets are also going to equal to 0. So now then you split the brackets and put and put each bracket equal to 0. One value of x is -6 and other value of x is +4. These are your solutions for this quadratic equation. Easy 3 marks, which you can easily score. Nothing complicated about this one as well. Then it's solving an algebraic equation. So in this one, you'll have variables on both sides. Sometimes they will give you a fraction on one side. Sometimes they will give you a fraction on both sides. Sometimes they might not even give a fraction on either of the sides. But you have to be prepared for every single question. So when there's a fraction on one side, what you will do is you will cross multiply first and finish the fraction, because we have to make our equation easier to solve. So we just get rid of the fraction by cross multiplying. When I say cross multiply, we're just diagonally multiplying 3 with the right hand side. We can't multiply 3 with 4m plus 9 because it's being divided by 3. So that means the other side will get multiplied by 3. So 4m plus 9 equals to 3 bracket 7 minus 2m. This will be your first step. Next, we expand the bracket. Then we collect the like terms on each side. Like I said before, when you're moving a term from one side to the other side, it does the opposite on the other side. So if it's -6m on the right-hand side, it's going to be +6m on the left-hand side. Similarly, if it's +9 on the left-hand side, on the right, it's going to be -9. So that's 10m equals to 21 minus 9, which is 12. M is going to be 12 divided by 10, which is 1.2. That is your value of M. Very simple. These are the easiest 4 marks once again. You need to work on your algebra if you think you're weak in algebra, because majority of the paper is algebra. So if your algebra is strong, you can get good marks. Then expanding double brackets. So for expanding double brackets, what you can do is, to make it simpler, you can make a box with 4 parts. Horizontally, you can write the first bracket, which is x and 9. You just write the terms in the bracket with the signs. Since it's positive, so I'm not writing positive over here because 9 is positive on its own in this case. And then over here, vertically, we'll write the other bracket, which is x and -2. As you can see, I'm including the sign with 2 because now it's negative. Then what you're going to do is you're going to multiply the numbers that are in the row and column. So x times x, x squared. X times 9, 9x. X times -2, -2x. -2 times 9, -18. So this is an easy way of expanding brackets if you struggle with the rainbow method, which is like x times x, x times -2, then 9 times x and 9 times -2. You can use either of the methods, whichever you think are easy to understand for you. So then once you have made your box and written your terms in each of the boxes, what you do is you just add them up. So that's going to be x squared plus 9x minus 2x minus 18. Combine the like terms. 9x minus 2x is 7x, and -18 comes as it is. That is the expansion of the double bracket. Simple as that. Then factorize fully. So in this case, we have 16c to the power 4 p squared plus 20c p cubed. When it says factorize fully, you need to factorize fully. If you partially factorize it, you will get 1 mark. You will not score 2 marks if it's not fully factorized. So for factorization, when you have 2 terms like this, what you will do is you will identify the highest common factor between the 2 terms. We can see that we have 16 and 20, and 16 and 20 both come in the 4 times table. So we take 4 common. Then we have c to the power 4 and c. So between c to the power of 4 and c is common, so we write c. Between p squared and p cube, we know p squared is common because p cube is bigger than p squared, so we can't take p cube common. P squared is going to be common. So p squared outside. Remember, for the variables that you're picking common, if the variables exist in both terms, they will be outside common. And for the powers, you will pick the smallest power. You will not pick the biggest power. You will not combine the powers. You will pick the smallest power for each variable that you have taken common. So now we write the remaining terms inside the bracket. So 16c to the power 4 p squared When divided by 4c, p squared becomes 4c cube. That's it. When you took c common from c to the power 4, we're left with c cube. Then for 20c p cube, when we're dividing that with 4c p square, we're left with 5p. C divided by c is 1. P cube divided by p square is p. 20 divided by 4 is 5. So since there's nothing common between 4c cube and 5p, this is your fully factorized answer. That is it. We don't need to do anything else. So make sure that you're taking everything that is common between the given terms and not missing anything out. Then percentages. Percentages is also a very common topic that always tends to come. So the table shows the cost in euros of Bridget's car insurance in each of the years 2016, 2017, and 2018. Bridget says that the percentage increase in the cost of my car insurance from 2017 to 2018 is more than the percentage increase in the cost of my car insurance from 2016 to 2017. Is Bridget correct? You must show how you get your answer. So for this, you will find the percentage increase from 2017 to 2018, and then from 2016 to 2017, and then compare and see whether she's right or not. So if we start from 2017 to 2018, percentage increase has the formula of new value minus the old value divided by old value times 100. So from 2017 to 2018, obviously new value is going to be 592 because that's the new year. And 545 is the old value. And just multiply it by 100. That gives us 8.62%. I'm going to keep it correct to 2 decimal places right now. Then for 2016 to 2017, now this is going to be a new value and this is going to be your old value. So 545 minus 500 divided by 500 times 100. That gives us 9%. So she said that the percentage increase in the cost of her car insurance from 2017 to 2018 is more than the other. So is she correct? No, it's the other way around. And that can be seen from the values as well because 9% is greater than 8.62%. Then it says Henry wants to insure his car, gets a discount of 15% off the normal price. Henry pays 952 euros for his car insurance after the discount. Work out the discount that he gets. So he wants to insure his car. He gets a 15% discount off the normal price, which means he's paying 85% now. He pays 952 euros for his car insurance after the discount, which means 952 represents 85% of the normal price. Just look at the question again. It says there's a 15% discount off the normal price. So that means after the discount, according to the question, he's paying 952 euros. So 15% off means he's paying 85% of his normal price. So 952 represents 85% of the normal price. If they were saying that he has to pay 15% more, then it would be 115% of the normal price. So the question is honestly telling you everything. You just have to read the keywords very carefully. Discount means that you subtract from 100. Increase means you add to 100. So then it would be 952 divided by 0.85. And that would give us the normal price, which is going to be 1,117.65 euros. I'm going to round it to 2 decimal places. That is your normal price. So now to figure out how much discount he's getting, discount is going to be the normal price minus the new price. So 1,117.65 minus 952, and that gives us 167.65 euros. That is the discount he's receiving. So just read the question carefully and trust me, it's not that hard. Again, these are easy marks so far, nothing complicated. Then we have area of 2D shapes. Sometimes it's going to be a shaded shape, sometimes it's just going to be an unshaded shape. Over here, the region shown here in the diagram is a path. The boundary of the path is formed by two semicircles with the same center O and two straight lines. The inner semicircle has a radius of 7 meters, and the path has a width of 2 meters. So if the path has a width of 2 meters, that means this semicircle will have a radius of 9, because 7 is this, so 7 plus 2 is going to be 9. Work out the perimeter of the path. So to work out the perimeter of the path, we need the curved part over here. We need the two straight lines. Since the width is 2, these two lines are going to be 2 meters as well. For the curved part, you will use the radius to find the circumference of this semicircle because it's a half circle. And once we have those circumferences, going to add them to each other and to 2 and 2 to get the perimeter of the path. So circumference of inner circle, that's going to be 2 pi times 7 divided by 2. Formula for the circumference is 2 pi r. Since it's a semicircle, we're dividing it by 2. Radius is 7. So that's going to be 7 pi, which becomes 21.99. I'm going to keep it correct to 2 decimal places right now. And then circumference of outer circle, 2 pi times 9 divided by 2. That's 9 pi, and that gives us 28.27. So the perimeter is going to be 21.99 plus 28.27 plus 2 plus 2. Perimeter is always boundary of the shape, not the space that you occupy, the boundary of the shape. And for the boundary, you always add up the final lengths. So 21.99, 28.27 plus 4. That's 54.26. They want the answer correct to 1 decimal place. So we round it to 54.3 meters. That is the perimeter of the path. So for these type of questions, you need to know your formulas for basic 2D shapes. They can give you a trapezium, they can give you a parallelogram, a compound shape where they've combined rectangles or squares or triangles. They can give you anything. If you're someone who still doesn't know that there are other formulas that you need to memorize as well, apart from the ones that are given in the formula sheet in the exam, I've attached the download link in the description below. In that download link, you'll find all of the formulas you need to memorize for this exam, because you might think all the important formulas are given. They're not. There are some formulas that you need to memorize as well. So do download that document and memorize the formulas before your exam. Then the next question is that the diagram shows a vertical cliff with a vertical radial mass on top of the cliff and a boy in the sea. The height of the cliff is 100 meters. The boy is at the point B, that is d meters from the base of the cliff. The angle of elevation from B to the top of the cliff is 20 degrees. Calculate the value of D, giving your answers correct to 3 significant figures. So this question is a mixture of Sohcahtoa, which is a part of trigonometry, and angle of elevation and depression. Angle of elevation is the angle that you make when you're looking above. As you can see from the boy, when it's looking above, it's looking at the cliff over there. So 20 degrees is your angle of elevation, because that's the angle when you make when you're looking above. If it was depression, then that angle would be you looking down. So we can clearly see it's a right angle triangle. And we have the opposite, which is the length opposite to the angle. The length on which the angle lies, that is your adjacent. So we have the opposite, we have the angle, we have to find the adjacent. So if we write Sohcahtoa, opposite and adjacent both come in tangent. Tangent equals to opposite over adjacent. So tan of 20 equals to 100 divided by D. So D is going to be 100 divided by tan 20, which equals to 274.74. They want the answer correct to 3 significant figures, so 275 meters. That is the value of D. Then it's saying that the point A at the top of the radio mass is vertically above the top of the cliff. The angle of elevation from B to A is 25 degrees now. Calculate the height of the radio mass. So we'll draw another line over here. And according to them, this angle is now 25. So we have to find the height of the radio mass, this thing. So what we will do is we already know the value of D, which is 275. So using the value of D and the angle, we find the opposite, but now we find the total length, 100 plus x, all of this. And then once we have the total length, we will subtract 100 from it to get the value of the height of the mass. So tan 25 equals to height over 275. Now we cross multiply because we're trying to find the height. So 275 times tan 25, that's 128.23 meters. So now to find the value of x plus 100 is your height, which is 128.23. So x is going to be 128.23 minus 100, which is 28.23. They want the answer correct to 3 significant figures, so that's going to be 28.2 meters. That is the height of the radio mass. So don't get intimidated by the terms angle of elevation or depression. This question will always be a Sohcahtoa question. So just remember Sohcahtoa, identify what your opposite is, adjacent is, and hypotenuse is, and then just use Sohcahtoa to solve the question. Then algebraic fractions. So if you have to write as a single fraction, 2 over 3x plus 4 over 5x minus 9 over 10x, giving your answer in the simplest form. So whenever you have like fractions with different denominators being added or subtracted, remember that you have to make the denominators equal for you to solve the fraction. And making the denominators equal is only relevant to adding or subtracting fractions, not multiplying or dividing fractions. We don't have to make the denominators equal in that case. So for us to make the denominators equal, we need to identify the lowest common multiple of 3x, 5x, and 10x, which, if we come to think about it, can be 30, because 30 comes in the 3 times table, 30 comes in the 5 times table, and the 10 times table. So we multiply the first fraction by 10, both the numerator and denominator, not just the denominator. Second fraction by 6, because 5 times 6 is 30. And last fraction by 3, because 3 times 10 is 30. So now we have 20 over 30x plus 24 over 30x minus 27 over 30x. Now that we have the same denominators for each of these fractions, we can write it as a single fraction with the same denominator and add the numerators in the numerator. So 20 plus 24 is 44. And then we do 44 minus 27. That is going to give us 17. So 17 over 30x is your fraction in its simplest form. It clearly says write as a single fraction, which means we have to combine the fractions into a single fraction and then simplify it. So remember, make the denominators equal and make sure that whatever you're multiplying to the denominator, that happens to the numerator as well. You solve adding or subtracting algebraic fractions with unlike denominators. Then after that, we can get a standard form question. It says a equals to 4.2 times 10 to the power of negative 24, and b is 3 times 10 to the power of 145. We have to work out the value of a times b. So basically, we're multiplying 4.2 times 10 to the power of negative 24 with 3 times 10 to the power of 145. What you can do is you can directly multiply 4.2 and 3 in the calculator. And for 10, if you notice, we have the same base of 10 being multiplied. So whenever we have the same bases being multiplied, we add the powers. So negative 24 plus 145. So that's going to give us 12.6 times 10 to the power of 121. So the answer has to be in standard form. And in standard form, your decimal comes after the first non-zero digit. First non-zero digit is 1, not 2, which means the decimal needs to move over here. So when you move the decimal over here, it becomes 1.26, and then we add 1 to the power. So that is going to be 122 for the power of 10. So 1.26 times 10 to the power of 122 is your answer in standard form. Remember, the decimal will always come after the first non-zero digit, not the second or the third. If you're someone who struggles with understanding standard form and can't figure out, whether to move the decimal to the left or right, what happens to the power, check out the link above. I've made a separate video in standard form, and in that video, I've used past paper questions to explain the topic in detail. Then another type of question you get on standard form is to convert an ordinary number into standard form or vice versa. This is your ordinary number form. When there's no 10 to the power of something, it's ordinary number. So to convert it into 10 to the power of something, we'll move the decimal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places to the right. I told you in standard form, the decimal needs to come after the first non-zero digit. First non-zero digit is 8. So we moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 places to the right. So that's 8.9 times 10 to the power of -5. Since we're moving the decimal to the left-hand side, since we're moving the decimal to the right-hand side, it's going to have a power of negative. Then over here, write 8.34 times 10 to the power 4 as an ordinary number. Honestly, for this, you can even just plug it in the calculator, because now we're going to move the decimal 4 places to the right. So that's 83400. That is your number in ordinary number. If you struggle with converting them, an easy trick is that put the given number in your calculator, change the mode, and it will give in standard form and an ordinary number both ways. So you can do that as well, in case you're getting confused about where to move the decimal and what will be the power. Then highest common factor and lowest common multiple. So we have a equals to 3 to the power 5 times 7 cube, and b is 2 cube times 3 times 7 to the power 4. We have to find the highest common factor. If you remember, when you were doing factorizing fully that expression, I told you to identify the highest common factor. You will see what is the common number between the two. We can see that we have a 3 common and a 7 common. Now from those 3 and 7s, you will pick the lowest power. So over here, this 3, which doesn't have a power, that means it has a power of 1. And 7 cube is smaller than 7 to the power 4. So HCF is 3 times 7 cube. So 7 cube is going to be 343, and then times 3. 1029 is your highest common factor of A and B. If you want to leave it as 3 times 7 cube, you can also do that, because the question hasn't specified the format that they want the answer in. So both ways can work in this case. Then find the lowest common multiple of A and B. For the lowest common multiple, now what you do is you pick all of the numbers. So we pick 2, we pick 3, 5, and 7. So once again, for lowest common multiple, you will pick all of the numbers, not the common numbers, all of the numbers. And then for each of those numbers, you will pick the highest power. For 2, there's just one 2, and it has a power of 3. So highest power for 2. For 3, highest power is 5, because 5 is bigger than 1. For 5, there's only one 5, so power of 1 over here. And for 7, power of 4, because 4 is bigger than 3. So now you can just plug them in the calculator and give the final answer. 2 cube times 3 to the power of 5 times 5 times 7 to the power of 4. That's 23337,720. So once again, either you can leave it in the prime factor form or give the final answer. Both ways it's going to be correct. Make sure to remember the distinction between HCF and LCM. If you mix it up, you're going to lose these very scoring marks for no reason. Then next thing in this topic, they can test you on giving your answer as a product of its prime factors. which is basically this format over here, this and this. You're writing the answer as a product of its prime factors. Prime numbers are numbers that are only divisible by 1 and itself. So over here, it says a equals to 2 to the power of n times 3 times 5 to the power of m. We have to write 8a as a product of powers of its prime factors. So 8a is going to be 8 times 2 to the power of n times 3 times 5 to the power of m. Now the question clearly says prime factors. Is 8 a prime number? No. 8 comes in 4 times table, 2 times table, 1 times table, and the 8 times table, which means we have to convert 8 into its prime factor form. 8 is 4 times 2. 4 is 2 times 2. So that shows that 8 is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 2 cubed. 2 is a prime number. 2 is the smallest prime number, by the way. 1 is not a prime number. 2 is a prime number. So 8 can be rewritten as 2 cubed now. And then next step is to combine similar bases. We can easily see that 2 cubed and 2n have similar bases, which is the base of 2. So whenever we have similar bases being multiplied, we add the powers, which is again one of the rules of indices. As you can see, it's coming frequently in questions, so you need to know your rules of indices by heart. So 2 to the power of 3 plus n, and then everything else comes as it is. So that is 8a as a product of powers of its prime factors. Then algebra again, making r the subject of m equals to root of 6a plus r over 5r. This is another easy 4 marks. You just have to rearrange the equation to make another variable the subject. You will do each thing step by step to make sure that you're not making an error. So what we have is m equals to root of 6a plus r over 5r. First, we need to get rid of the square root on the fraction. To get rid of the square root, we will square both sides because the opposite of a square root is a square. To get rid of something from one side, you have to do the opposite on both sides. So m square equals to 2 and square root. When you square a square root, it gets cancelled out. So that just leaves us with 6a plus r over 5r. Now, next step is to get rid of the fraction. So we know that to get rid of the fraction, we will cross multiply. So 5r times m square equals to 6a plus r. So that's going to be 5m square r equals to 6a plus r. They want us to make r the subject. So we can see that we have two terms with r in it. So to make r the subject, we need to take all of the terms with r on one side. The reason being that once we take them on one side, we can take that r common, and now we'll have just one r in the equation, not two. And this is exactly what we need to make it the subject. We can't have several variables which you're trying to make the subject. It has to exist only once. Initially, r was existing twice, and now once we have manipulated this equation, we can see that r exists only once. And now to make it the subject, we're going to divide 6a by 5m square minus 1, and that is the answer. So once again, do it step by step, break it down. Don't get confused. This is once again a very easy topic. And if you think you don't understand this that well, just go to the Changing the Subject video. I'm attaching the link above for that. And you'll practice all of those questions again. Just like keep on practicing till you understand what we're doing. We're doing the opposite each time to get rid of the term. So once you understand the pattern, it's pretty easy. Then the next question, we talk about inequalities. Inequality is also a topic that comes from time to time. I have a feeling it will come this time as well. So it says the shaded region in the diagram is bounded by the 3 lines, and the equation of one of the lines is given. Write on the 3 inequalities that define the shaded region. So what you need to do is we have these 3 lines given in the shaded region. So what we will do is using these 3 lines that surround the shaded region, going to find their equations. So if you look at this vertical line that is passing through x equals to -1. So that's one equation. Then for the diagonals, one line is already given, which is this one. So for this one, we can see that the y-intercept is 4. So C is 4. And using y equals to mx plus c, we know that y equals to mx plus 4 is the equation right now. We need to find the value of m. To find the value of m, what you can do is you can pick 2 points. You can pick this and this, and use these 2 points to find the rise over run. So our run is -4 because we're going 4 units to the left, and our rise is +4. So m is rise over run. Rise is +4, run is -4, which shows the gradient to be -1. So y equals to -x plus 4 is the equation of this line. Now we have to convert these equations into inequalities based on the shaded region. So they're saying that the 3 inequalities define the shaded region. So if we look at x equals to -1, shaded part is on the right side of the line. And on the right side, the values of x are increasing, which means x is greater than equal to -1. Since the line is a solid straight line, which means that x equals to -1 is included in the range of values. That's why it's greater than equal to. If it was a dotted line, it would be greater than -1, not greater than equal to. So there's a difference. If it's a dotted line, that means the value at that point is not included. If it's a solid straight line, then the value is included. Similarly, for y equals to -x plus 4, the shaded part is underneath the line, which means the values of y are decreasing now. So next is going to be y is less than equal to -x plus 4. Then for the third one, y equals to 1 over 3x minus 2, the shaded part is above the line. So over here, the values of y are increasing. So y is greater than equal to 1 over 3x minus 2. These are your 3 inequalities. So just remember, if it's a dotted line, then you will not write the equal to sign. If it's a solid straight line, then it's equal to. And then the greater than, less than depends on the shaded part. Then surds. Surds also very commonly comes. So they can ask you to rationalize the denominator. So easy 3 marks. What you will do is you will multiply and divide the fraction by the conjugate. Conjugate is the same thing as the denominator, but with the opposite sign in the middle. So instead of writing 3 minus root 7, it will be 3 plus root 7. You will multiply and divide the fraction by this. Not just multiply, not just divide, both. And make sure that the sign in the middle is opposite. So now you multiply them horizontally. We don't simplify it vertically because then it will go back to the initial question. We don't want that. We're trying to rationalize the denominator. Rationalizing means that you're trying to get rid of the square root from the denominator. So it's going to be 6 times 3 plus root 7 over 3 minus root 7 times 3 plus root 7. Expand the brackets. 18 plus 6 root 7. In the denominator, what you can do is you can either directly expand the bracket or you can use difference of perfect squares. Difference of perfect squares is that a square minus b square is equal to a minus b times a plus b. So over here, our a is going to be 3 and b is going to be root 7. So when you square 3 square minus root 7 square, square of square root is the number in the root, so that becomes 7, and 3 square is 9. So 9 minus 7 is 2. If you don't know difference of perfect squares and can't memorize it, just directly expand the bracket. And that's also fine. For directly expanding the bracket, you can use the box method, which I mentioned earlier. Split into 4 parts. This is 3. This is negative root 7. This is 3. This is positive root 7. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times negative root 7 is negative 3 root 7. 3 times root 7 is 3 root 7. And root 7 times root 7 is negative root 7 square. So now add these up. 9 minus 3 root 7 plus 3 root 7, and square of square root 7 is 7, so minus 7. So that also gives us 2, because negative 3 root 7 plus 3 root 7 is going to be 0. It gets cancelled out, and 9 minus 7 is 2. So same thing, but two different ways of solving it. So this is 2 over here. So now 18 divided by 2 plus 6 root 7 divided by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9, 6 divided by 2 is 3, so 3 root 7. We don't divide the root 7 by 2, we're dividing 6 by 2. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. So this is your answer. And we can see that the denominator has been rationalized. There is no radical in the denominator. The radical, which is the third, is in the numerator now. Then you can get another type of question on indices where they can ask you to change the base. So over here it says, given that 3 to the power of x divided by 9 to the power of 3x equals to 81, find the value of x. For these type of questions, you need to make sure that all of the numbers have the same base. Smallest base over here is 3. And we know that 9 can be rewritten as 3 square, and 81 is 9 times 9, which would be 3 square times 3 square, which is 3 to the power 4. So 3 to the power of x divided by 3 square whole power 3x equals to 3 to the power of 4. We have changed all of the bases into the base of 3. And now we can easily solve this because we know that whenever the bases are same, if they're being divided, we can subtract the powers. But first, we will simplify the power in the denominator. When there's a power inside the bracket and outside the bracket, we multiply those powers. So that's 3 to the power of 6x. Now we subtract the powers. X minus 6x, base remains the same throughout. 3 to the power of negative 5x. When there's the same base on both sides, we can put the powers equal to each other, and x is going to be negative 4 over 5. That is the value of x. So just remember, in such questions where there are different bases, see what is the smallest prime factor base. Smallest prime factor base was 3. And we know 9 comes in the 3 times table, and 81 comes in the 3 times table as well. So we can easily convert them into the base of 3 as well. And then using the rules of indices, we simplify our equation to get the value of the unknown. Then you can get a question expanding surds. So this is the other thing you need to know about surds. So expanding brackets is what I discussed previously as well. To make it easier, let's just make the box. One bracket will be written horizontally, the other vertically. So we can say this is 8 and this is minus root x. The sign comes with the root. And this is 5 and this is positive root x. 8 times 5 is 40. 5 times negative root x is negative 5 root x. 8 times root x is 8 root x. And negative root x times root x is negative root x whole square. So now we add the results. 40 minus 5 root x plus 8 root x. Square of root x is going to be x, so minus x. Collect the Lagrams. We can only simplify surds when there's the same number in the root sign. This is root x, this is also root x, so we can simplify this. So 40 minus x plus 3 root x is our expansion. We cannot solve x and 3 root x because one x is a root and the other is a whole number. We can't simplify them. So it says this expansion equals to y root x plus 21. We have to find the value of x and y. So y root x plus 21 is equal to this. If we look at this, y would be 3 because that's what is with root x. So y is equal to 3. And for x, 21 equals to 40 minus x. Because this is equal to all of this. So x is going to be 40 minus 21, which is 19. So x is 19, y is 3. Simple as that. So don't get intimidated by the questions. Trust me, the solving methods are still the same. They just rephrase the question differently to confuse you. But if you look closely, read carefully, it's still the same. Then you can get this type of question on indices as well, where there's a negative power and the power can be a fraction as well. So whenever there's a negative power, always remember that you have to make the power positive. To make the power positive, what we do is we flip the base. So basically the fraction in the base, we will flip that. So you take the reciprocal, in other words. So it's going to be y to the power of 20 divided by 16, w to the power of 8. And now the power is going to become positive. We're not flipping the power, we're flipping the base. So as you can see, the fraction in the power is not flipped, it just became positive. But we took the reciprocal of the base. Now, when there's a power inside the bracket, outside the bracket, we always multiply the powers. And always remember the power gets distributed on the coefficient as well, not just the variable. So it's going to be y to the power of 20 times 304 over 16 to the power of 304 times w to the power of 8 times 3 over 4. 20 times 3 over 4 is 15, so y to the power 15. 16 is 2 to the power 4. Either you break it down and do it step by step, or you can just directly put this in the calculator as well. Like this entire thing, plug it in the calculator, and that will give you 2 to the power 3, which is 8. So if you don't know how to solve this part, you have the option of using the calculator. They will not deduct marks for that. So that's going to be y to the power of 15 over 8 times w to the power of 6. That is your fully simplified answer. We cannot further simplify this. So once again, when there's a negative power, you flip the base, and then we know that when the power is inside the bracket, outside the bracket, we multiply the powers, and the power always gets distributed on all of the terms, including the coefficient, not just the variable. Then transformation of graphs. That is a very popular question. It comes almost every single time. The diagram shows the curve with equation y equals to f of x. The coordinates of the minimum point of the curve are -2 and -1. Write on the coordinates of the minimum point of the curve with equation y equals to f of x minus 5. So for this, you need to know how the graph changes when something is being added or subtracted directly to x or directly to the function. If something is directly subtracted from x, that means we're moving that many units to the right side. So it's x minus 5, so that means we're going to move 5 units to the right, not to the left, to the right. The rule for x is opposite. If you're subtracting something from x, you move that units to the right side. If you're adding something to x, you move that units to the left side. Whereas if it was y equals to f of x plus 5, then it's 5 units up. And with minus, it would be 5 units down. So for y, the rule is like very straightforward. That's like common sense. If you're adding, you're going to go up. If you're subtracting, you're going to go down. But with x, it's the opposite. If it's x minus 5, you go 5 units to the right. If it's x plus 5, you go 5 units to the left. If you're someone who gets confused about these questions and still doesn't understand how to break this down, you should check out my link above. In this video, I've discussed transformation of graphs using past paper questions in quite detail. So I would suggest going through that if you struggle with this, because this is going to come, like it comes almost every single time. So since we're going 5 units to the right, that means we're going to add 5 to -2. So that's going to give us +3. So x becomes +3. Nothing happens to y. y remains the same. Remember, if the transformation is only happening to x, only x will change. You will not change y. If you change y, you will lose your 1 mark. They will not give you 1 mark for the correct x value. Then y equals to half of f of x. Now your function is being divided by 2. And since y equals to f of x, that means we're dividing the y value by 2. Y is negative 1. Negative 1 divided by 2 is negative 0.5. So x remains the same as negative 2. Y becomes negative 0.5. Simple as that. Then since the graph of y equals to a times sine of x minus b plus c for x is less than equal to 450 but greater than equal to negative 90 is drawn on the grid below. We have to find the value of a, b, and c. So C is your vertical translation, B is horizontal translation, and A is your scale factor by which the graph is either stretching or becoming narrow. So over here, it's a sine function. You need to know what is the original sine graph. Original sine graph is like this. 0 to 360. Maximum value is positive 1. Minimum value is negative 1. And the function equals to 0 at 0, 180, and 360. Minimum value is at 270. Maximum is at 90. If we compare this with this graph, we can see that 3 is maximum and negative 1 is minimum. And since the difference between the maximum and minimum value is 2 over here, if we find half of this, half of 3 and negative 1 is going to come over here. So this is your axis basically. So you can see that the difference between the axis and the positive value is 1. Same is with the axis and the minimum value. So if we multiply this by 2 first, your maximum value becomes positive 2, minimum becomes negative 2. After that, it has moved up by 1 unit. When we move it up by 1 unit, minimum value comes at negative 1, positive value comes at 3, which means your value of A is going to be 2 because the original sine function was multiplied by 2 first. Then it moved 1 unit up. So C is going to be 1. Now for the B value, which is your horizontal translation, this is your 0 value. 0 is at 90, which means we're moving the graph 90 units to the right side. That shows that we are subtracting 90 over here. Because I told you initially when it's minus from x, that means we're moving that means to the right. So x minus 90 means moving 90 degrees to the right hand side, which means B is going to be 90. Because look, now the maximum value, instead of being at 90, it's at 180. This 0, which was supposed to be at 180, is now at 270. All of the angles have moved 90 degrees to the right hand side. So B is going to be 90. It's the same thing as the other graphs. It's just that the equation is slightly different because it's a trig equation. So kids tend to get confused. But if you know your transformation of graphs, this is not that difficult. Then you have a question on polygons. So it says the diagram shows a regular octagon ABCD, HIJK, and a pentagon DEFGH. Angle GHD equals to angle FGH. GHD. This angle is equal to FGH, okay? Work out the size of the angle marked X. So since it's a regular octagon, we can use the interior angle formula to figure out the value of the interior angle for the octagon because it's a regular one. So we can easily use the formula because for a regular polygon, all the interior angles are equal. Once we have this angle, we can use this one to figure out this angle over here because these two angles are the same. So we can find the sum of interior angles for the pentagon, use that to find the missing angles. And once we have the value of y, we can see that sum of angles around a point is 360. So you subtract those two angles from 360 if you get the value of x. So very simple step by step, but for this you need to know your formulas for polygons. You need to know the formula for each interior angle, each exterior angle, sum of interior angles, sum of exterior angles. These formulas are not going to be given the formula sheet. So please memorize these formulas. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm attaching the download link for the formula sheet in the description below. Download the document and memorize all of those formulas. So first, interior angle. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sides because it's an octagon. So interior angle formula is n minus 2 times 180 over n. So 8 minus 2 times 180 divided by 8. That equals 135. So 135 is the interior angle of the octagon. Now the pentagon has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. So using the sum of interior angle formula, we're going to find the sum of interior angles of the pentagon. So that's going to be n minus 2 times 180. We're not dividing by n over here. So 5 minus 2 times 180 because we want the sum for the pentagon, not the octagon. That's 540 degrees. So now I find the value of y. So 540 equals to 2y because two angles are equal. 112 plus 102 plus 96. Make y the subject now. So 112 plus 102 plus 96 is going to be 310. So 540 minus 310 equals to 2y. And then divided by 2 is 115. So now to find the value of x, that's going to be 360 minus 135 minus 115. This is 115. So that gives us 110 degrees. That is the value of x. Just simple as that. Question 22 says Sarah makes and sells mugs. One day she makes 150 mugs. The total cost of making these mugs is 1,140 pounds. Of these mugs, 2/5 are small mugs, 32% are medium mugs, and the rest are large mugs. Her price list for selling each mug is that small is for 8.50 pounds, medium is for 11.20 pounds, and large is 14.20 pounds. Sarah sells all 150 mugs. We have to calculate her percentage profit. So I selected this question because this question uses fractions and percentages along with percentage profit. So it is a good question. So we have to find how many small mugs, medium mugs, and large mugs she's making. So for small, that's 2/5 of 150. So that's going to be 60. Then medium is 32%. So 32 over 100 times 150. That's going to be 48. And the rest are large. So 150 minus 48 minus 60. And that's going to be 42 marks. So small, medium, and large. Now they're saying that her total cost for making these mugs is 1,140. For the small mugs, she's selling them for 8.50, medium for 11.20, and large for 14.20. So we can find the individual earnings that she gets from small, medium, and large cups. Then what we can do is we can add them up. and then use that and the initial cost, because for the initial cost, it's the same for each mug. They haven't specified it for that. It says that the total cost of making these mugs is 1,140. So you can find the total revenue that she's earned from selling these mugs and then use that to figure out the percentage profit. So earning from small mugs, that's going to be 60 times 8.5. That gives us 510 pounds. Then earning from medium, that's going to be 48 times 11.2. That's 537.6 pounds. And then earning from large, that's going to be 42 times 14.2. 596.4 pounds. Now we do total earnings. So that's the sum of all of these. That gives us 1,644 pounds. So now for percentage profit, we do selling. So what she's earned minus the cost, which was 1,140 divided by the cost times 100. It's the same as percentage increase, new price minus old price divided by old price. So what she's earned minus the cost divided by the cost. So that gives us 44.2%. They want the answer correct to the nearest whole number, so that's 44%. That is the percentage profit. So again, very easy marks. These are like a lot of marks for just a very, easy question. Like there's no complication. It's just basic knowledge of how to use fractions, percentages, percentage profit works. It's always earnings minus cost divided by the cost and then times 100. Then probability tree diagram. This also has a very high chance of coming. So ICA has 2 packets of seeds, packet A and packet B. There are 12 seeds in packet A and 7 of these are sunflower seeds. There are 15 seeds in packet B and 8 of these are sunflower seeds. ICA is going to take at random a seed from packet A and a seed from packet B. Complete the probability tree diagram. So if the probability of getting a sunflower seed is 7 out of 12, so the probability of not getting a sunflower seed is going to be 1 minus 7 out of 12, which is 5 out of 12. So this is 5 out of 12. Point to the question, there are 12 seeds in packet A, and 7 of them are sunflower seeds. So in packet B, 15 seeds are total and 8 are sunflower seeds. So 8 out of 15 is the probability of getting a sunflower seed. So not sunflower seed is going to be 7 out of 15, and it's going to be the same over here, 8 out of 15 and 7 out of 15. So calculate the probability that ICA will take 2 sunflower seeds. 2 sunflower seeds are going to be this. We go from packet A and from packet B, sunflower to sunflower. So when you're moving along the branches, you multiply the probabilities. So 7 over 12 times 8 over 15, and that's going to give us 56 out of 180. If you want to simplify, that's fine. If you want to leave it as it is, that is also fine. There is no restriction. Then next you can get is conditional probability. So it says a box contains 15 counters. There are 4 red counters, 5 green counters, and the rest are yellow counters. So red is 4, green is 5. So 15 are total. So yellow are going to be 15 minus 4 minus 5, and that gives us 6. Nicholas takes at random a counter from the box and writes down the color of his counter. He then puts the counter back into the box, so it is with replacement. He takes a counter, writes the color, and then puts it back in the box. Sasha then takes at random a count from the box. She writes down the color of a counter. And then Sasha takes a random counter from the box and writes down the color of her counter. We have to work out the probability that the counters taken by Nicholas and Sasha both have the same color. So either it can be red, red, or green, green, or yellow, yellow. So the probability of Nicholas taking a red counter is going to be 4 out of 15. And then Sasha is going to be 4 out of 15 as well, because he's writing down the color and putting it back into the box. So the total number of counters are not changing. Or for green, it's going to be 5 out of 15 times, again, 5 out of 15. Or for yellow, 6 out of 15 times 6 out of 15. So this will give us the probability that the counters taken by both of them have the same color. So that's 16 out of 225 plus 25 out of 225 plus 36 out of 225. Add the numerators, 16 plus 25 plus 36. That's 77 out of 225. That is your final probability. So these are easy 3 marks. Then you can get a probability question where they will give you a table and they will ask you to find the missing probabilities in the table and the expected number of something happening. So over here, we have a spinner, which is a 5-sided bias spinner. Grace is going to spin the arrow on the spinner once. The table gives the probabilities that the spinner will land on red or on blue or on green. Other than that, we have orange and pink as well. The probability that the spinner will land on orange is 3 times the probability that the spinner will land on pink. So as said in the question, the probability that the spinner will land on orange is 3 times the probability the spinner will land on pink. So if pink is x, orange is going to be 3x. Whenever we have a table like this, sum of the probabilities will always be equal to 1 because the spinner has all of these colors. So the spinner existing has the probability of 1 with all of these colors. So when we add up the probabilities of all of the colors appearing on the spinner, it will equal to 1. So 1 equals to 0.2 plus 0.12 plus 0.08 plus 3x plus x. That's 1 equals to 0.4 plus 4x. 1 minus 0.4 equals to 4x, which is 0.6. 0.6 divided by 4 gives us the probability of 0.15. So the probability of getting orange is going to be 3 times of 0.15, which is 0.45. That is your answer. Then Grace spins the arrow on the spinner 150 times. We have to work out an estimate for the number of times the spinner lands on blue. So whatever is the probability of blue, you will times it by the number of times the spinner is spun. So 150 times 0.12, that gives us 18. So 18 number of times the spinner will land on blue. Very simple question. These type of questions are very scoring, so you can easily score these 5 marks. Easily. Then sets and Venn diagrams. So what they can do is they can give you a universal set, which in this case are letters of the alphabet. Brazil, so Brazil, and I is Ireland, Ireland. We have to list the members of the set B union I. When you see the symbol U, that's union. When it's upside down U, it's intersection. Intersection means common elements, union is all of the elements. So basically, B union I means all of the elements in B and I. So that's going to be B, R, A, Z, I, L. We will not write I twice, just one. So then R is also not written twice, just once. Then E, L is also written once, A is also written once, N and D. All of the alphabets that are appearing in both B and I are written just once, not twice. Then B intersection I complement. When you have an apostrophe on the set, notation, it's complement, which means elements not in I. So we have to find the intersection between elements not in I and B. So elements not in I that are going to be in B are B, Z, and that's it. Because R is in I and L is in I, A is in I. So in Brazil, the elements that are common between B and the elements that are not in I are B and Z. So that's your answer. Then after that, it says R, B, and Z. So that's your answer. And then K, which is Kenya. Cody writes down the statement B intersection K is a null set. This means empty set. Null set is empty set, which means no elements. There's nothing in it. So Cody's statement is wrong. Explain why. So if you look at Brazil, that has the element B, R, A, Z, I, L. Kenya has K, E, N, Y, A. So they're saying the intersection between the two is 0. There's nothing common between them. That's incorrect because both have A in common. So that's why Cody is wrong. Both B and K have A in common. Hence, Cody is wrong. Because if there was nothing in common, then yes, it's an empty set. But since the alphabet A is common between both of them, then it's not an empty set. B intersection K is equal to A then. Then we can get a more difficult question of sets and Venn diagrams, where we have the intersection of 3 sets, and they want us to complete the Venn diagram first, and then maybe use that Venn diagram to figure out the probability or some other information. So in our case, it says that there are 32 students in a class. In one term, these 32 students each took a test in maths, English, and French. 25 students passed the test in maths, 20 in English, 14 in French, 18 students passed the test in maths and English, 11 in maths and French, 4 students failed all 3 tests, and X students passed all 3 tests. So I'm going to start from the bottom and go up. So X passed all 3 tests. That's going to come over here. This is the region where all 3 are overlapping. So X number of people who passed all 3 tests are over here. 4 failed all 3. So that's going to be outside the 3 circles because this person failed all 3 tests. Now, 11 students passed the test in maths and French. So 11 in maths and French, so that's going to be all of this is 11 because this is the common area between maths and French, which means over here it's going to be 11 minus X because a part of 11 is already X. So this part is going to be 11 minus X. Then 18 passed the test in maths and English. This is maths and English. So again, all of this is 18 and a part of it is x. So this is going to be 18 minus x. Then it says 14 passed the test in French. So 14 is basically this entire circle. That's 14. And 20 passed English. So English is all of this. So this is 20. So maths, the entire circle for that. That's 25. So we know the total students are 32. So what we can do is we can use the math circle to figure out the value of x, because we have all of the values for, like, the parts of maths. So 25 equals to 3 plus 18 minus x plus 11 minus x. Collect the like terms. 32 minus x. X is going to be 32 minus 25. That's 7. So x is 7. Then use your value of x to complete the Venn diagram to show the number of students in each subset. So now if we know that this is x, x is in the middle. Okay. So this part will be 11 minus 7, which is 4. This was 18 minus 7, which is 11. Then we know that this entire circle is 14. 4 was outside. So for French, it would be 14 minus 4 minus 7 minus 2. This would give us just French. So just French is going to be 14 minus 4 minus 7 minus 2. That is 1. So just French is only 1. And for just English, it's equal to 20. 20 minus 11 minus 7 minus 2. That's 0. So there's no one over here. So that is your complete Venn diagram. Then a student who passed the test in maths is chosen at random. So we're just focusing on the circle for maths. Find the probability that this student failed the test in French. So as you can see, we are focusing on the maths section, and from that we're trying to find the probability of a student that failed the test in French. So over here, these students passed the test in French. So the student who failed French will be over here, this one. So the probability would be 11 out of, I think math people were 25, if I'm not wrong. Yep. So 11 out of 25, that's your probability. These people are the people who passed maths and French, so we can't choose these people. But this person over here, he passed maths and English, which means he failed French. So 11 out of 25 is the probability of a student who passed maths but failed English, but failed French. Then you can be tested on histograms. It says the histogram gives information about the heights, H centimeter of some tomato plants. There are 12 tomato plants of which H is less than equal to 85 but greater than 75. So that's basically this. One of the tomato plants is selected at random. We have to find an estimate for the probability that this tomato plant has a height greater than 82.5 centimeters. greater than 82.5 is going to be 80 is over here. $82.5 will be here. That's it. Okay, so our focus is going to be on this and this greater than 82.5. Okay, so first need to figure out how many tomato plants are in each of these bars. We know this is 12. So using this 12, we'll figure out the scale for the frequency density. So 12 is the frequency for this entire bar from 75 to 85. So using this 12, we're going to figure out the value of frequency density. Once we have that for the y-axis, then we will use that to figure out the entire scale of the y-axis. So frequency density basically has a formula of frequency over class width. So for that bar, frequency is 12 and class width is the difference between the intervals. So that's 10. That gives us 1.2. So this over here is 1.2. So if this is 1.2, that means this is 1 and this would be 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. So this is 0.5. Each big square is 0.5 and each small square is 0.05. So basically this is 0.1, then 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 like this. So if you look at the y-axis now, for this 155 to 60, that's 0.6. This is 0.6, 0.7. This is 0.8. This is 1. This one is 0.4. So we have the frequency densities now for each of the bars. Now we find the frequencies. Now we find the frequencies. So for the first bar, it's going to be 0.6 times the class interval, 55 to 60, that's 5. That gives us 3. For the next one, it's 0.8 times 10, which is 8 because the interval is 10, 70 minus 60. For 70 to 75, 1 times 5, that's 5. And from 85 to 90, 0.4 times 5, which is 2. So we have to find an estimate for the probability that this tomato plant has a height greater than 82.5. Between 75 to 85, we have 10 columns. And we're focusing on 2.5 columns. So if we find the value of one column, 10 columns are equal to 12 plants. One column is going to be 12 divided by 10, which is 1.2 plant. So for 2.5 columns, 2.5 times 1.2, that gives us 3 plants. So 3 plants are over here. So 3 over here, and from 85 to 90, we have 2 plants. So the probability is going to be 5 out of the total. So we add these up. 3 plus 8 plus 5 plus 2 plus 12. That is going to be 30. So 5 out of 30 is 1 over 6. That is the estimate for the probability that this tomato plant has a height greater than 82.5 centimeters. And the quadratic simultaneous equation is also very common. Whenever you have a quadratic simultaneous equation, remember we will always use the substitution method, not the elimination method. The reason why we're not using elimination is because y doesn't have the same power in this case. We have y squared and y, so we can't really eliminate it. And y is occurring more than once over here in the first equation as well. So substitution is the perfect method. Just use that. Don't waste your time on elimination for a quadratic simultaneous equation. So you can make x the subject in the second equation. X equals to 1 plus 2y. This is the first equation. This is the second equation. Let's call this a third. So you will substitute third in the first one. So that's going to be 3 bracket 1 plus 2y times y minus y squared equals to 8. Wherever there is x, you will replace it with 1 plus 2y. Expand the bracket now. Collect all the terms on one side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to solve this quadratic equation. So you can use the quadratic formula or middle term breakage. Either way works. I'm going to use the middle term breakage for this. We multiply the coefficient of y squared with the constant. So 5 times 8 is 24. Then we find other factors of 24. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 6 and 4. We're going to use that set of factors which when added or subtracted gives us the middle term, which is 3. So that's 5 and 8 because 8 minus 5 is 3. So we're going to replace the 3y with 8y minus 5y. Everything else is going to come as it is. Only the middle term is replaced by 8y minus 5y. Now we're going to use factor by grouping. First two terms make one group, last two terms make another group. In the first group, we have y common. So 5y plus 8 goes in the bracket. In the second group, we have -1 common. Whenever you don't see anything common, 1 will always be common. Regardless of whatever is happening, 1 will always be common because every number is multiplied by 1. So -1 is taken common, so that leaves 5y plus 8 in the bracket. I'm taking the negative sign common because there's a negative with 5y and 8, so it's common. So now, between 5y and 8, we have y minus 1 common, so that goes in the other bracket. So one value of y is -8 over 5 and the other is +1. Now we're going to substitute these into the third equation to find the corresponding x values as well. We don't just stop over here. At y equals to 1, x is 1 plus 2 times 1, so that's 3. And at y equals to -8 over 5, x equals to 1 plus 2 times -8 over 5, which is 1 minus 16 over 5, 5 minus 16 over 5, and that is -11 over 5. So when y is -8 over 5, x is -11 over 5. These are your answers. Then you can easily get a question on sector of a circle. They can ask you to find the perimeter, they can ask you to find the area or an angle depending on what the question is. So for this, you need to learn your formulas for the area of a sector, perimeter of a sector, arc length of a sector, because these formulas are not going to be given to you in the formula sheet. Over here, they've given us the angle, they've given us the radius, they want us to find the area. So use the area formula, which is theta over 360 times pi r square. Theta is 140 over 360 times pi times 16 square. Just plug this in the calculator and that gives us 312.76. They want the answer correct to 3 significant figures, so that's going to be 313 centimeters square. That's it. Very basic. You just need to know the formula for this. That's it. then vectors. So it says OAB is a triangle, Q is the point on AB such that OQP is a straight line. Vector O is given as 4A, vector OB is given as 6B, vector AP is given as 2A plus 8B. Use the vector method to find the ratio of AQ is to QB. So for that, we need AB as well. So AB is going to be AO plus OB. We're talking about going from A to B. So either we go directly from A to B or we go from A to O and then O to B. So when you change the direction of your vector, its sign changes. So 4A becomes negative 4A because we changed the direction and OB remains the same. So we have vector AB now. Next, what we know is AP is 2A plus 8B. So for this, we can use that because AP is 2A plus 8B. So we can use that to figure out OP. OP is going to be O to A plus A to B. We go from this point to this point and this to this. So O is 4A plus 2A plus 8B, which is 6A plus 8B. So what we can do is we can create an equation for AQ first. We can assume that AQ will be some scale factor times AB. Why? Because AQ lies on AB. So AQ is a part of AB. So AQ is some scale factor multiplied by AB. So AB we found to be negative 4A plus 6B. So times negative 4A plus 6B. That is your equation for vector AQ. So if we expand the bracket, negative 4 lambda A plus 6 lambda B. Now AQ can also be AO plus OQ. We don't know what OQ is, but we know what AO is. However, we can create an equation for OQ as well using the given information. We already found OP, which was 6A plus 8B. And since OQ lies on OP, which is a straight line, we can say that OQ is some scale factor times OP. So now we can say it's K times OP. So over here, making another equation of AQ in terms of AO and OQ, AO is going to be negative 4A. OQ is going to be K times OP. OP is 6A plus 8B. So 6A plus 8B over here. Expand the bracket. Plus 6KA plus 8KB. As you can see, we have two equations for AQ. So since both represent the same vector, we can put them equal to each other to find the values of lambda and K, and then further use that to find the ratio of AQs to QB. So negative 4 lambda A plus 6 lambda B equals to negative 4A plus 6KA plus 8KB. Values that have A attached to them, those coefficients will be put equal to each other, and same for B. Values which have B attached to them, those coefficients will also be put equal to each other. That's this, and this over here, this, and this for B. So we'll write negative 4 lambda equals to negative 4 plus 6K. That is one equation. And the other one is going to be 6 lambda equals to 8K. So 6 lambda divided by 8 is k. So if you replace k with this, negative 4 lambda equals to negative 4 plus 6 times 6 lambda over 8. That's negative 4 lambda equals to negative 4. 2 3s are 6. 2 4s are 8. 3, 2. So that is plus 9 over 2 lambda. Multiply everything by 2 to get rid of the fraction. So that's negative 8 lambda equals to negative 8 plus 9 lambda. Collect the like terms on each side. Eight over 17 is lambda. So k is going to be 6 times 8 over 17 times 1 over 8. That is 6 over 17. That is k. So we have to create a ratio for AQ is to QB. AQ is lambda times AB. So that's 8 over 17 times negative 4a plus 6b. So which means QB is going to be 9 over 17 times AB. So the ratio is going to be 8:9. That is the ratio in which AQ and QB are divided on AB. That's your answer. So for these type of questions, remember, even if you're confused, try to find as many vectors as you can using the given information. Once you found your vectors, if it says using a vector method, you have to find the value of a variable or like create a ratio or something. Pick a vector and create two equations for that vector. Once you've created two equations for that vector like I did, then put them equal to each other, solve it for the unknown values, and with that you'll be able to solve the question and find the variable or the ratio. Literally the steps are exactly the same. Nothing is going to change. Whenever it says vector method, the steps are going to be similar to this. If you're someone who struggles with understanding vector questions, I've made a video on vectors as well. I'm attaching a link above. Again, in that video, I've used past paper questions to explain the topic in detail. Then sine rule and cosine rule. So it says here's a triangle ABC. Work out the value of x, giving answer correct to 3 significant figures. So you need to know when to apply sine rule and cosine rule. Yes, sine rule and cosine rule are going to be given to you in the formula sheet. You need to memorize them, but you need to know the conditions when they're applicable. Over here, we have two lengths and the angle between them. That is the condition for cosine rule. We can use the cosine rule to find the third length if two lengths and the angle between them are given. Then for you to use the cosine rule to find an angle, you need all three lengths. So if all three lengths are given for the triangle, you can use the cosine rule to find a missing angle. For the sine rule, what you need is you need one complete pair of angle and length. So if you have an angle, you need the length opposite to that. This would make a complete pair. So over here, as you can see, the angle that we have, we don't have the length for that. But for the length we don't have the angle for that. So first we need to figure out this length, and that will be done using the cosine rule. So AC squared equals to 9.7 squared plus 12.3 squared minus 2 times 9.7 times 12.3 times cos of 115. Plug this in the calculator. That's 346.225. Now we're going to take the square root. Always remember to take the square root. If you don't take the square root, you will not get the right answer. A lot of kids make this mistake that they don't take the square root. So that's going to give us 18.61 meters. Now that we have this length, we can use the sine rule to figure out the value of x. So we have one complete pair now. So 18.61 divided by sine of 115 equals to 9.7 divided by sine of angle x. So cross multiply and make sine x the subject. So 9.7 times sine of 115 and divide that by 18.61. Plug this in the calculator and what you get is 0.47239. Then we take sine inverse of this. Whenever you take sine on the other side, it becomes sine inverse. You don't divide it by sine, it will be sine inverse. So that's going to be 28.19. They want the answer correct to three significant figures, so that's going to be 28.2 degrees. That is the value of angle x. So once again, sine rule and cosine rule are not difficult. They will be given to you in the formula sheet, but you need to know the conditions for them. If you don't know the conditions for them, you won't be able to apply them correctly and easily score these 5 marks. These are once again easy 5 marks for sine rule and cosine rule because they haven't been giving like difficult questions for these lately. Then we have 3D trigonometry. So the diagram shows a cuboid ABCD EFGH. EH is given as 9 centimeters, HG is 5 centimeters, and GB is 6 centimeters. We have to work out the size of the angle between AH and the plane EFGH. AH is this diagonal over here. So this is the angle that we're trying to find basically over here. So we know GH is going to be the same as FE, which is 5. So this is another right angle triangle. Using Pythagoras, we can figure out FH. And then AF is also the same as BG, which is 6. So another right angle triangle. So when we have both these lengths, we can find the angle for this triangle. So let's first find FH first. So that's the hypotenuse. So FH square equals to 5 square plus 9 square. 25 plus 81. That's 106. Then we square root that. That's 10.30 centimeters. So now this is 10.30. So since this is the opposite, FH is the adjacent, we'll use tan. Tan theta equals to 6 over 10.30. Theta is going to be tan inverse of 6 over 10.30. That's 30.2 degrees. They want the answer correct to 3 significant figures. This is 3 significant figures. So that's your answer. Again, very easy marks. You can easily score these. Easy 4 marks. Then you can get a question on coordinate geometry where they can ask you about perpendicular lines, parallel lines, midpoints, everything. So I chose a question which has a mixture of everything. And these are one of the questions that come at the end of the exams. These are the grade changing questions. It says ABCD is rhombus. The diagonals AC and BD intersect at the point M. The coordinates of M are 6 and -11. The points A and C both lie on the line with equation 2y plus 7x equals to 20. We have to find the exact point where the line through B and D intersects the y-axis. So for these type of questions, you need to know your basic properties of all 2D shapes. We're talking about a rhombus. So if you draw a rhombus firstly has all equal sides. and the diagonals of the rhombus meet at right angles, which means they're perpendicular to each other. So if we say this is A, B, C, D, the diagonals AC and BD intersect at M. So M is going to be the midpoint of AC and DB, and M is 6, -11. So using that, and they've given us the coordinates of M. They say that points A and C lie both on this line. So we have the equation of the diagonal AC. Since we have the equation of the line AC, and we know that AC and BD are perpendicular, we can use the concept of perpendicular lines to figure out the gradient of DB. Using that and the coordinates of M, which also lie on DB, we can create an equation of DB and then use that to find the points where it intersects the y-axis. So step by step. So first, let's rearrange this equation of AC and make y the subject. 2y plus 7x equals to 20. 2y equals to 20 minus 7x. Y equals to negative 7x over 2 plus 20 over 2, which is negative 7x over 2 plus 10. This is your equation for AC in y equals to mx plus c form. Now m, which is the gradient, is negative 7 over 2 for AC. Whenever two lines are perpendicular, the product of the gradients always equals to -1, which means negative 7 over 2 times m2 equals to -1. So the gradient for the line DB is going to be -1 times 2 divided by -7, which is positive 2 over 7. So now we have the gradient of the line DB. We have point M which lies on DB. We can create an equation for DB now. So y minus 11 negative 11 equals to 2 over 7 times x minus 6. I'm using the point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals to m times x minus x1. If we want to use slope intercept form, that's also fine. But in this case, since we have a slope and a point, so I'm going for point slope form. So that's going to be y plus 11 equals to 2 over 7x minus 12 over 7. Y equals to 2 over 7x minus 12 over 7 minus 11. 2 over 7x minus, that's an equation for BD. So we have to find the coordinates, the exact coordinates of the point where the line through B and D intersects the y-axis. So if it's intersecting the y-axis, that means we're going to put x equals to 0, because on the y-axis, x is always 0. So y is 89, negative 89 over 7. So your coordinates are 0 and negative 89 over 7. So even if your y value is wrong because you messed up something in the calculation, it's intersecting the y-axis. So remember, just put x equals to 0. You'll get a mark for that. You have to try to get as many marks as possible, even if you're getting confused while doing your question. That is the main goal. Get as many marks as possible. Then next, they can give you a question on sequences, which is also very common. So an arithmetic series has first term A and common difference D. The sum of the first two n terms of the series is 4 times the sum of the first n terms of the series. Find an expression for A in terms of D. Show working clearly. So the sum of the first two n terms is 4 times the sum of the first n terms. This is what we have. So we have to create an expression for A in terms of D. They can give you any type of question for this topic. I chose this one because this incorporates algebra and the arithmetic series concept. In the description below, I'm attaching a link for my topical playlist. In that topical playlist, you'll find a video on this topic as well. So go through those questions as well, because we don't know which type of question can come for this. Because last time they gave a question that was from 20 or 2021, like it's a repeated question. So just look at the pattern for the questions for the topic you specifically struggle with and try to solve as many as you can for these, because honestly, they're just repeating questions each time. So if you're able to practice everything and understand what they're asking you to do, it's not going to be that hard. So for the sum equation, which is also given the formula sheet if I'm not wrong, it's going to be n over 2 times 2a plus n minus 1 times d. This is your sum formula. So first term is a and common difference is d, and n is n. So is n with 2n for the first part. So that's 2n over 2 times 2a plus 2n minus 1 times d. Then 4 brackets n over 2 times 2a plus n minus 1 times d. Simplify this. So n bracket 2a plus 2nd minus d. This becomes 2, this becomes 1. So that's 2n bracket 2a plus n nd minus d. Now n divided by n is going to be 1, so the n's are going to get cancelled out. And that's 2a plus 2nd minus d equals to 4a plus 2nd minus 2d. We have to make a the subject, so collect the terms with a on one side and everything else on the other side. So 2nd minus d minus 2nd plus 2d equals to 4a minus 2a. 2nd minus 2nd, so that's 0. Negative d plus 2d is d. So d divided by 2 is a. So that is your expression for a in terms of d. So just learn the formulas. Your formula for this is going to be given, and nth term formula is a plus n minus 1 times d. You need to know these formulas. If you don't, you're going to get confused and not be able to solve the question. So once again, do check out the topical playlist, which I mentioned in the description below. After that, you can get a question on cones and pyramids, cones and spheres. This can also come. It is one of the questions that kids most commonly get confused on. So over here, the diagram shows a sphere of a diameter with x centimeters and a pyramid ABCD with a horizontal rectangular base BCDE. They've given us the dimensions in terms of x. The vertex A of the pyramid is vertically above the center O of the base, so that AB equals to AC equals to AD equals to AE. So all of these lengths are equal. BC is x centimeters, CD is 2x centimeters, and AO is 5x centimeters. The volume of the sphere is given as 288 pi. Calculate the total surface area of the pyramid. So since the volume of the sphere is given and diameter is given as x, radius is going to be half of the diameter. So x divided by 2 is your radius. Let's use the radius and the volume to figure out the value of x first. Once we have the value of x, we can figure out the total surface area of the pyramid. So again, step by step. So volume of the sphere is 4 over 3 pi r cube. So that's 288 pi equals to 4 over 3 pi r cube. So now pi gets divided by pi. So 288 times 3 divided by 4 is r cube. So let's see what that equals to. 216. Then we take the cube root of 216 to find the value of r. R is 6 centimeters. So we initially said that R is x over 2. So which means x is going to be 12. So we have the value of x now, which means this is going to be 12. This is going to be 24. And this is going to be 60. So calculate the total surface area of the pyramid. Since the slant lengths of the pyramid are the same, so now next what we need to do is we need to figure out this length, because that is the height of the triangular faces. Without that, we cannot find the area of the triangular faces. So to figure that out, we will make a right angle triangle over here inside the pyramid. We have the height. Total length of BC is 12, and O was the center of the pyramid, which is given the question, which means half of it is going to be this length, and that is 6. So we can easily use Pythagoras to figure out the hypotenuse of this triangle. So if I call this F, AF is going to be square root of 6 square plus 60 square. So that gives us the value of centimeters. Now this 60.3 is this one. So this is going to be same for this and this face. So area of ACD and ABE. If you notice, it's a rectangular base. So that means the bases are not identical for all 4 triangles. The 2 triangles opposite to each other are identical. So if I highlight this over here, it's basically this face is identical. And then these are identical to each other. So both have different bases because it's a rectangular base, once again, not a square base. So the area of these 2 faces is going to be 2 times 1 over 2 times base is 24, height is 60.3. So that equals 1447.2 centimeters square. So that is the area of the blue faces. You can easily mess up this question if you don't notice that it's a triangle. You can easily mess up this question by not realizing that it's a rectangular base. If you just forget that and solve the area of one face and multiply it by 4 to automatically assume that's going to be area of all of the 4 faces, it's going to be incorrect because this pyramid does not have a square base, it has a rectangular face. So only 2 faces are identical to each other, not all 4. So now we find the slant height of this triangle over here. So this will have a base of 24 divided by 2, 12. I need to find the hypotenuse for this triangle now. So again, we use Pythagoras. Let's call this AH. So AH is going to be root of 12 square plus 60 square. That gives us a value of 61.2. So now same steps. Area of this is ABE is going to be area of ABC and AED. That's 2 times 1 over 2 times. Now your base is 12 and height is 61.2. That gives us 734.4. So now total surface area is going to be 734.4 plus 1447.2 plus a rectangular base, which is 12 times 24. That's going to give us 2,469.6 centimeters square. They want the answer correct to the nearest centimeter square. So that will be 2,470 centimeters square. That is your answer correct to the nearest centimeter square. And with that, we're done with this predicted paper. These are all of the topics I believe have a very high chance of coming in the exam. Obviously, there is no guarantee, but like based on the trend I've noticed, I think these topics will come. I would strongly recommend for the topics that you still don't understand stuff, just check out the topical playlist. Practice more for the difficult topics where they change the pattern, because obviously there's no guarantee that the same type of question will come. They can give the topic like that I've mentioned over here, but the type of question can be different. So you need to be able to solve each question with confidence so that you're able to score well. If you have any questions or confusions, please leave a comment below and I'll help you out. If you understood everything, please like and subscribe, share this video with your friends, and stay tuned for paper 2 because I'll be uploading that in the coming days as well.